different meanings. There are different meanings talking about what patience means. A lot of it talks about endurance. A lot of it talks about perseverance. These are very important. Forbearance. These are talks about the qualities of enduring through something difficult. And because you have great endurance, you're able to think great, right? Because you endure through something that's difficult, you're able to look beyond and look at further away. So it's truly not easy, but we must be determined. So very quickly, we're talking about why they have achieved greatness and we have not. Well, so far, we got these things, right? Patience, forbearance, endurance, perseverance. They have a lot of it. We don't have enough. That's why they succeeded. That's why these great Dharma prince, that's why these great disciples, they're who they are. They're mentioned by name, individual names, about 20 of them in all, but there's 80,000 of them. So what's happening to the rest, 79,999 of them, or, all the rest that's not being mentioned? Well, they haven't achieved such greatness. Okay, so why did they achieve it? We talked about patience, forbearance, endurance, and perseverance. They're determined, very determined, not easily swayed, not easily changed, and with strong will. They're making aspirations. They set their mind to do something, and it will work out for them. Okay, so that's the first part. Make great patience. Second part, we're going to be talking about this great story about Venerable Sariputra. And I think that this story is always associated with this foremost in wisdom. This person, Sariputra, we're going to hear his name many times. If you continue, it's going to happen all this time that he's going to be mentioned, because he's probably one of the most widely known disciples of the Buddha. And he's always been talked about as the wisest, foremost in wisdom. There are 10 major disciples that we should probably know by name, that most of us know by name. They're great. They achieve greatness already. And the rest probably haven't achieved as great. That's why people don't know their names. But this person is probably mentioned the most, Shariputra. Okay, so the story goes like this. And this is in the physical book, page 145 to 148. Now, this is a story. And let me tell you, I always critically look at these stories to assess whether this is real or not. And most of the time, these stories can only be talked about as fairy tales, because a person in their right mind probably won't do this. But that's precisely the point. The Shariputra person, it's not that he doesn't have the right mind, but he has a great mind. That's why he would do things that's beyond our belief. Just like Master, she would do things that's beyond our belief and understanding. So that's why you can't just use a normal, simple logic to try to understand. So let's look at what happened. So ages and ages ago, before he was Shariputra, he was a great elder. This was Buddha's disciple with foremost in wisdom. So in his past life, there was one time he tried to learn the Bodhisattva practice, and he was a great elder. He vowed that in order to practice, he wants to give everything away to help sentient beings. Whatever you need, you go to this great elder and you ask for it. The great elder is going to give you what he has. So eventually, he gave away all his wealth, external, physical things, even the clothes he gave away. Anything that sentient beings need, he's going to give it away. So even after he gives it all, he still said to himself, I am still going to give away all the things I have, not just the external worldly belongings. I'm going to give away everything that is mine, including my head, my eyes, my brain, my marrow. So nowadays, we can do this, right? You can't give away your head, but you can give away the parts of the organ, right? In your eyes, the brain and the marrow. These are things that we can give away. We can give away our skin, our organs, kidney, right? Liver. These are things that we can give away, and many things, right? Our blood we can give away. You don't have to wait until we pass away. We can give away these organs too, right? So these are the things that we can give away. But back then, when technology isn't even that advanced, giving something like this away almost always means death. Okay, so he is very certain that to pursue the cultivation, to pursue the altruistic right? We're talking about unselfish, altruistic, helping others more than what I need, more than my life. So he's thinking about this, right? So one day, a young man comes to him and says, I know that you are giving away everything, right? So please, I need an eye of a kind-hearted spiritual practitioner who upholds the pure precepts, because this is a very important part, a catalyst for the medicine that my mother needs. Okay, so imagine somebody comes up to you and say, I need your eye. One of them, only one of them is needed. What would you say? You would, in your right mind, you would say, get lost, forget about it. Are you crazy? Coming up to me and say you want my eye? But Shariputra wasn't like this, right? He's a great elder. He already made a vow. He wants to help the world, right? He says, of course I can do this, right? Without hesitation. He said, you only need one eye. That's great, because I have two. And one of them, I only need one, right? Who cares about depth perception, right? I don't care if I can do this, right? Touching the tip of my finger, right? You do this, right? If you close your one eye, it's going to be very difficult because there's no depth perception. So from Shariputra, he's like, I don't need that perception. I don't need to do this all the time. So I can just give away one eye. That's no problem. So he talked about, you only need one eye to save your mother's life. And giving up one of my eyes is not difficult at all. So he proceeded to gouge his eye out right there, right? And gave it to the young man. So now he's bleeding on the one eye socket, on the right eye. And the left eye is still seeing the young person. There you go. There you go. This is what you need, right? And the young man said, oh my God, this is probably the worst case possible, right? The young man said, oh no, I forgot to tell you. I need the left eye. You just gouged the right eye for me, but I need your left eye. Now imagine if this were to happen, right? You would have a lawsuit on your hand, right? This is horrible. This is like malpractice. This is all the worst things that's happening, right? So I want the left eye. Why did you give me the right eye? And so there's a horrible situation, a mix-up. So the young man says, oh no, I didn't tell you this. Oh, my bad. And well, guess what? It's not like you can't just put the eye back, right? You can pop it back. So now the Shariputra said, well, why didn't you tell me earlier? Amazingly, Shariputra did not lose his temper. He didn't. He says, but that's all right. That's all right. Because saving your mother is very important. Okay. I want to save your mother's life. I must do everything I can. So I'll give you my left eye. Now, so now Shariputra took out his left eye. So now he's got his right eye on his right hand. He take out his left eye on his left hand and gave it to him. Okay, but by now he cannot see anything, right? So he's like, oh, here, please take it. Where are you? Where are you at? Where are you at? So he can't see anymore. And so he's giving to him, right? And I'm glad he can't see, because he cannot see what's about to happen, right? So the young man took this left eye and he smelled it, right? And he said, the doctor told me that the eye of someone who is very pure has to be the part of the catalyst. But your eye smells so foul. I'm sure when he said this, there must be a facial expression, of disgust, right? The eye, even though it's all bloody, from somebody who is very kind-hearted, should smell very nice. Okay, I don't know where he gets this from. I don't know. Please, don't try this at home, right? Don't try to gouge out your eye and say, "Oh, how does this smell? Does that mean I'm a bad person?" Please don't. This is just a story, okay? So I'm glad that at the time Shariputra already lost both his eyes. He cannot see the facial expression on the young man, right? But the young man made sure, even though he cannot see it, even though Shariputra cannot see it, he made sure that he hears it. So he threw both of his eyes on the ground and then stomp on it, and so that he could hear. The eyes, probably the treasure, the jewel that we have in your face, took out. Supposedly it's the treasure that we have, and we give it to somebody, and then they just throw it to the ground, stomp on it, and treat it like it's garbage. Okay, so from that point on, Shariputra says, forget it. I am not going to be altruistic anymore, because all I did to help others, all I did save his mother's life, what he did to me. So I am not going to be that person anymore. I'm going to make sure I take care of myself. And that's when his vow takes a turn and he just stopped down this road. So this story was telling us, so what did we learn, right? It's very important to be very steadfast, to be adamant, to be determined, but you have to be mindful about this. You're not supposed to act with haste and without consideration. Think about this, right? Even, and I know this, right? I myself, I remember 14 years ago when I came back to the abode, and I came to the abode, I move in, I stay in the abode. I didn't rent a place around the abode. I didn't go to our dormitory. I go inside the abode and I stay here. The very first day I got back to Hualien. And ever since then, this has been my home for 14 years. And when I vow to become a pure practitioner, 2019, master and all the Dharma masters of the abode, they invited my parents, my family to this ceremony. And we are once again asked, they are once again asked, is it okay that your son or your daughter comes to the abode and assumes the life of a practitioner? And obviously it was all okay. Nobody stand up in the middle of a ceremony and says, I object. It doesn't happen, right? You only see that in the movies. But in this normal ceremony, it's normal. And it's already negotiated. I already talked to my parents. It's going through such heavy consideration, right? Everybody, everything, even though you want to be altruistic, even though you want to help out people, Master wants us to think, consider carefully, act mindfully. Don't do this in haste and without consideration, right? So you have to do this very carefully. Not like Shariputra, right? He's very set to help everybody, but he didn't think about it carefully enough. He didn't ask, are you sure you want the right eye or are you sure you want the left eye? He didn't ask these questions. So in hindsight, we should probably ask these questions. Okay, so if anybody asks you to donate your organ, for example, kidney, anything that you have two of, right? Make sure we find out, is there any difference between the left one and the right one? Obviously, scientifically, medically, there shouldn't be any difference between the left kidney and the right kidney. And I hope that we don't have to donate it, because I think living on one kidney, we have to be very careful. The life that we lead is going to be very, very difficult, but it's something that we can do, but it's going to be very difficult. But it's altruistic, but we still have to act with consideration. So that's why when we do bone marrow, when we donate our bone marrow, right, there's a very, very tedious steps. There are tedious steps that we must follow to make sure we don't screw up, right? You take all your marrow out, and then we realize it doesn't match. That's why we go through very, very much all the processes to make sure that there is a good match. Otherwise, we go through all the process, and then what do we get? We get something that doesn't work for the person that needs it, right? So that's why we're doing that now, right? In bone marrow registry, we go through many, many tests to make sure that the matching, the HLA types, there's a match on the 6 pair. That's why, and the odds are very small, in 1 in 10 and 100,000. But once you get there, it's a pretty good chance. It's a very good chance, okay? So we have to be very careful, be very mindful. Don't do this in haste, and don't do this without consideration. But also be prepared mentally. That means that not everybody that gets your gift is going to be, very grateful. You have to be prepared mentally. You go and you become a volunteer. You go and serve in your community. It doesn't mean that the people that you serve are going to be very grateful that you're there. They're going to be very happy that you're there. It might not be. Everybody's mood is fluctuating. So you have to be very careful, right? You manage your own expectation, right? So why they have achieved greatness, right? So we talk about this, right? So patience, forbearance, endurance, perseverance. Determined with strong will, and a new one, right? Clear, tranquil mind and wisdom. Please, please be calm about it when you make some major decisions, right? It should not be done in haste. I remember 2009 when I came back to Hualien. That was my first time in Hualien. I see the entire surrounding. I told myself, this is the place that I want to live. But I didn't move back right away, even though I wanted to. There was an impulse for me to just move back, right? But I went back to the US. I chatted with my parents, And there was a lot of struggle, right? There's a tug of war. My parents was trying to convince me out of it. I was trying to convince them that this is the right path for me. And eventually we reach an equilibrium where they agree and I agree. And we all settle on something that we can both accept, right? So clear and tranquil mind. Don't do this when you're just right there, right then, right? Think about it, right? Be clear. Are you sure? You're not just passionate about something and then you make a choice right there. If it's a big, major choice in life, please act mindfully. Please choose with consideration. And that's very important, right? So the last part, once lost, the human form takes countless to regain. So why did they achieve this and why we cannot, right? So opportunities are very hard to come by. So number one, we must not think of ourselves as unqualified. Once again, we must have the confidence that we can be like them too. All the great ones, all the names that were listed, like for example, in Singapore, you look at all the roster in our CEOs, our volunteers, right? The ones that making great contributions, the ones that are doing so great, contribution to the society, the ones that's constantly getting awarded by the government, the ones that were getting recognized by master, by all these people. Well, you look up to them, right? But don't think yourself as any less than these people. They could do what they do, you could too. Given the right time, given the right opportunity, given the right training, you could also. So we must not think of ourselves anything less than them. We could too. Just like Master. Master is trying to tell us we could be like her too, even though many of us would be like, I don't think so. But we can. If we choose to, if we want to, if we put our hearts and mind into doing what we do, we can. And we must believe that. And we must not have the mindset that, oh, we have time. We still got time, right? Let's do this for, a few more lifetimes. I'll catch up, right? And then I'll become a Bodhisattva, because Master says that we don't know impermanence. We don't know when something is going to happen, that all of a sudden I will lose everything. We don't. And therefore, it's hard to say. It's hard to know. So opportunities are hard to come by. We must grasp every opportunity. So now a bigger triangle now. Why did they achieve greatness while we can't? Patience, forbearance, endurance, perseverance. They persevere through all these difficulties. We talk about it. They endure through all these challenges. And not only that, they're determined. They have the strong will, and they have the wisdom, clear mind. They keep themselves clear-minded all the time, so they know what's right. They can choose between right and wrong. They know all these details and pros and cons and all these things, and then they're able to make the right decision, right? Believe in our capabilities. You must also believe that you can get there. They have achieved greatness, and so can you, right? Now, I understand, right? When I was growing up, and I would always watch NBA, right? Living in the States, we watch NBA. And there was a commercial called Be Like Mike. Okay, they're talking about Michael Jordan. Now, I would probably, in my life, I would probably never, let me not use the word probably. I'll just remove that word probably. I will never be like Mike. But what that Be Like Mike is saying is that, do you know how hard he works to excel in his field of expertise? Do you know how hard he trains? Do you know how hard he competes? If you can compete if you compete the same way that Michael Jordan competes, if you train the same way that he trains, you will excel. You will be just as great in your line of work, just like Michael Jordan is in his line of work. It's not like you can be like him to excel in NBA, even though I'm only 5'5", 5'6". No, the guy is like 6'8". No, there's a physical difference that you just can't overcome. But what he's saying is that you could overcome all the hardships if you work hard enough. That's what he did. You could do the same. Okay, so believe in our capability is very important, right? Do not wait around. Don't just think that, oh, it's going to come by. It's going to come by again, right? And you have to have these aspirations. So these are the things that we talk about in this section number 2, right? Section number 1. So I'm going to share this story. And I see that the time is amazingly, okay? Time just flies by when I just talk about all these things. This was actually only half of the things that I want to talk about. In fact, it's a shorter half. We have a longer half coming up, but it seems that I'm running out of time. But I want to share this story. and this is something that I really love to share, right? So, who is team of rivals, friends of Abe? It's pronounced Abe. It's not Abe. We're not talking about the Japanese prime minister that was assassinated. No, we're talking about Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. So this was back in 1850s, right? There's a book called The Team of Rivals, and I read this from the New York Times when they're doing a book review on this team of rivals. And I didn't know about this. I knew Abraham Lincoln. A lot of us, we probably know about Lincoln. I'm not sure what the story was. Was it a cherry tree? No, I think that was Washington. But anyway, we heard about Abraham Lincoln. He was a president that stopped slavery. He was a president that fought the Civil War in the United States history, and then he united all the states, and then he abolished slavery. So that was what he was most famous for. But there was a story that I got from this book review that I read. Was like, oh my goodness, what was it? So during the time before he became the president, before he was elected the president, he was actually a congressman. He was actually a lawyer in Chicago, and he was a congressman. Okay, and so when he wanted to run for president, before that, he had to go through the Republican Party, their own nomination, right? I'm not sure in Singapore, but in the US and in Taiwan, it's the same, right? So you have multiple parties, and each party will nominate who is going to be the main person that the party is going to fall behind and support. And that's why we have the popular vote and popular election. So at the time, the Republican Party has 4 candidates, right? They're thinking about these 4 people will eventually go up against the candidate from a different party, and then they will have their election, right? So Abraham Lincoln was one of them, but he was the least favorable to win out of the 4. So the book talks about there was one governor, Seward, right? He was the leader of the new party after 1856, and this was the early years of the Republican Party. And so he was the forerunner, right? He was 4 years as a governor. You have a governor, the experience as a governor, and you are able to come run for the president, right? So next to Seward next to Seward in prominence was Chase. There was another person who had organized this party in 1848, and it was also very prominent. Prominent as in people know these people, right? Most population know Seward, know Chase, and another person was Bates. And so Abraham Lincoln was less known. People don't know this guy, right? So but somehow, right? He won the Republican nomination, right? There's Seward, Chase, and Bates. So there are 3 rounds to this internal Republican Party convention, and he won. Okay, so all 3 of his shocked rivals, so we're talking about Seward, Chase, and Bates, they're all thinking that the better man had lost. The one that won wasn't the better one. Somehow, some fluke of nature or something that happened, that the worst out of the 4 won the election, won the party nomination, become the Republican candidate. So Lincoln's subsequent election as president did not change their minds, even though, so the first part was getting nominated by the party. So out of the 4 people, Lincoln became the nominee, became the candidate for Republican Party. And then he will go on to have an election against the Democratic Party. And eventually he became the president. So even after he became the president, these 3 people still think that he's not any better than any of the 3. So did not win, okay? But what happened? What happened was the Republican victory without a single electoral vote. So what that means is from the 15 slave states, so there is total of 50 states, but back in 1860s, there weren't all 50. But out of all these states, 15 of them supported slavery, and they did not support Abraham Lincoln. Therefore, the president was elected, but not by me. We did not vote for him at all. Therefore, the 15 states choose to succeed. What does that mean? They break away. They break away from the United States. I don't want to be called the United States of America. I am not united with you. So they break away, and they're called the Confederate States of America. So if you guys follow the global news, right, you probably know that Barcelona in Spain, very similar things is happening, right? Barcelona, we're talking about Catalonia, they're thinking about breaking apart, right? Breaking away from Spain. They want to form something different. If you live in Canada, you probably know about this too. Canada, every year or every so often, they would hold a vote in Quebec to see if you still want to be part of Canada, and it will always win in terms of staying with Canada, even though they speak different languages, right? So they speak French. So all these popular votes, right? So that's what happened, right? 15 states did not vote for this president. So you're not going to be my president. And so they break away. And this all happens in 1850s, right? So they break away, and therefore the North and the South, they go to war, right? They go to war. So right away, Lincoln, he took the unparalleled step of appointing to his cabinet all three of his rivals. So we're talking about Seward, we're talking about Bates, right? We're talking about the three people that think that they are better than Abraham Lincoln, but they lost. And then eventually Abraham Lincoln says, "You are my rival, but I will appoint you to my cabinet," right? And so Chase, Bates, and Seward, right? So each of them, right? Can they work in harmony, right? And so Abraham Lincoln said, we needed the strongest men of the party in the cabinet. And these were the very strongest men. Even though they're rivals, I had no right to deprive the country of their services, right? So eventually it was this lawyer from Springfield, and that's Abraham Lincoln, emerged as the strongest of them all. So how did he do that, right? Part of the answer lay in Lincoln's steadfastness of purpose, right? You rise above the purpose, right? You unite the people. No longer are you just talking about, I'm the president, I get to call the shots. No, you invite the people that criticize you. You invite the people that think that you are not as good to back. Okay, you don't think I'm good? Prove yourself. You are now part of my cabinet member. You're the war minister. You're all these things, right? The finance minister, etc. Right? So you invite them back, right? Lincoln's ability to rise above personal slights, right? Not being selfish, being altruistic. It's not even altruistic. It's thinking about the greater goods. His talent for getting along with men of clashing ideologies and personalities who could not get along with each other. Can you imagine in today's world? I don't know if you guys are familiar with Taiwan or American politics. It's impossible. It's so polarized. And it's not just in the politics, right? In families too. You go to any family dinner and you start talking about politics, my God, right? That dinner is not going to be peaceful at all. And this is happening in a family, right? These people are related by blood, but they will go to war with you if you don't agree with them on their politics, right? That's what happens, okay? So for somebody like this, he was able to rise above. And I think that's very important. Okay, so I'm way over my time, and unfortunately, I actually wanted to go through more, but go to the next parts. But there are 5 parts, and unfortunately, I don't have time to go through them, and maybe we'll wait until next time. But the first parts, even though just mentioning names, but I think it's very important that how did they become so great? How did they become great? How did they achieve greatness? All these things, right? Believe in our own, and then clear and tranquil mind. You are not affected. You are not blown away by all the delusions that thinking that, oh, you said something bad about me during the election because you try to put me down, right? You still think I'm not good enough? Now I prove it to you. I'm the president of the United States. Guess what? I'm going to invite you back, even though you are my rivals. You were my rivals, but now we need every able people, every able person we need. Can our hearts, can our minds be big enough to receive these people. Can we? That's hard, right? So I'm sharing with everybody that 80,000 individuals, they achieved greatness because they have these mentality, they have these mindset, their forbearance, endurance, they're determined, and they have strong will, and they have a very clear mind. They know that they're not doing this for themselves. They know that I must not be clouded by my personal emotions. I like you or I do not like you has nothing to do with you are a good person or capable person to help me do this. Nothing to do with it at all. So I'm going to have a clear and tranquil mind, and I'm going to have wisdom to do this, right? Believe in your own capability. Know that we can achieve greatness too if we put in the effort, if we do the same thing that they do, if we endure, if we persevere, if we're determined, if we have clear enough mind to make judgments based on clear mind on what's right or wrong. And don't wait around. Don't wait till the next opportunity to come by. In fact, there won't be a next opportunity. Don't wait around. Do it right now. Grasp this opportunity and have your aspiration. Set your goals up high. Don't just set it in front of your eyes. Set it to greatness. Try to make sure that you can achieve on this path every single day, moving on that path. So this part of the chapter gives you all these names to give you an inspiration, to give you self-reflection so that you know that we can achieve it too if we follow what they did. And that's what role models do. And that's what this section is all about. Okay, so 80,000 of them, it was probably mentioned about 20 of them to serve as an inspiration, to serve as self-reflection for ourselves. So that's all the time that I have today. I apologize, I ran over time, and I hope that the little bit of story about Abraham Lincoln, I hear this and I look at what's the political climate today in US and in Taiwan, I just shake my hand. I should say my head. I really hope that people can go back to the old days where it's the greater good of the country. It's not just the party. The greater good of the country, the greater good of the people outweighs who is in power. What's needed is that who is in power now and what can we do for the people? Unfortunately, it's not what I'm seeing today, but at least in the old days, that's what the great people did to achieve greatness. Okay, that's my sharing for today. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Joe. Brother Joe is very fantastic sharing, very interesting and very able to link up to our daily lives and a very interesting story about Abraham. All right, so we come to the session on Q&A. So are there anyone who wish to raise some questions to Brother Joe Huang? Please take this opportunity. If you do not want to speak and we prefer to write it in the chat group, I think you can always write it in that chat box, and then we can read from there as well. Right? A quick one. Anybody else? Anyone who wish to do some questioning? Okay.
No pressure. Okay, no pressure. We can always. I hate it when like after every sharing. Okay, if I'm listening, the people will be telling me like, oh, come on, ask, make sure we're take this opportunity, ask all the questions you want. Well, I just don't have anything to ask. Stop asking me to ask questions. I don't have anything to ask, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Usually we don't have questions. We don't come to this session having questions. But I'm just glad that if you have any feedback, if you think I'm talking too fast, I'm trying to slow down a little bit. But any feedback is also welcome.
Brother Joe, actually there's a question in the chat. I'm not sure whether you can see that as
well.
Let me see. I try to open up. Hang on, let me see where's the. Oh yeah, it's there. Okay, Brother Joe, can you see the question?
Yes, I can see the question.
Yeah, right. So maybe Brother Joe can.
I'll read it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'll read it. On the Bodhisattva path, cultivating great patience is crucial. How can we nurture this patience? while we may withstand emotional challenges, digesting them can be difficult. And I thank you for posing this. And I think this happens with me also. And I think in the book, it talks about several things. How do you detach yourself? And more will be talked about in the next section. That's why, unfortunately, I'm just talked way too much. And I forgot about my progress. But in the next section, it talks about different ways of how you can move along this path so that you can slowly detach yourself from the emotional binds, the emotional intertwining, the rope that ties you, that you cannot jerk free. Okay, so there are examples that's coming on later, right? But just to answer this in a very quick sense. So the first thing is, I think we talked about, the first thing is know what you want to do, know your goal, right? When you keep your eyes on the goal, on the purpose, you are less caring about what's happening around you. You, for example, you start thinking about, having a family, right? You're thinking about raising your son and your daughter to be a better person. I'll use the example of my father. My father gave us all the best opportunities. He took us to tennis lessons. He gave us private lessons on violin, but he himself never had these opportunities, right? He never learned how to, play tennis, not any sports, and he never learned any instruments. But he knew that these would be important in shaping our characteristics. So even though he doesn't know, he was very willing to spend the money. And we ourselves didn't understand. So we were, crying like, oh, I hate practices, right? But that's what my father said, that he wants to cultivate us so that we could at least expose our lives to all these different areas. And we even know how to paint, a watercolor painting. I never use it at all. I never learned anything from it. We just go there and we just play around. But my father paid all the money, right? Pay all the tuition so that we can learn these private lessons. And we're not a well-off family, but he was willing to. And the reason was because he set his eyes on the future where his sons will be able to achieve something greater. So he doesn't think about all the things around him, like, where's the money coming from? What am I going to do? Am I going to take on that vacation or buy the things that I really like? Or do I want to pay for the tuition that my sons are going to get, that I'm going to pay, because they're going to get these lessons that these two boys are not going to treasure at all. So I think a lot of times, number one, set your aspiration, set your vow and your goal high up, because when you set it very high up, it's not going to be very entangled in your everyday lives. And if you set your eyes high up, then it's less likely that your decision is going to be tied around all the things that's happening around you. So always remember, just like what Abraham Lincoln said, right? He was, just like the author said, that he was able to rise above the petty differences, because what he set in mind was the greater goal, that this is for the country, this is for the future. So you and I don't see eye to eye, that's fine. It's nothing to do with whether I like you or you like me. We had to do something bigger. So I think a lot of times this actually works out in Tzu Chi. In Tzu Chi, there are going to be people that you don't like. There are also nice people too, right? There are people that want to do good things, but they're just not your friends. They probably don't even like you. You don't like them, but it doesn't mean that they're not good people. They are good people too. And so they are doing good. They want to contribute to the society also. And so all these things are coming together and you're with them all the time. But if you set your eyes and set your goal further high, right? Further up, higher up, we're disciples of master. We're doing something that's good for the society. And it has nothing to do with whether I like you or not. You're a good help. I'm a good help. Let's just make it happen, right? It doesn't matter that if I like you or not like you. What matters is we get these things done and then we move the whole things forward, right? So number one, I think is that's why forming aspiration was important. There was a triangle that I showed earlier in my presentation, all these things, right? So setting your high, and then number two is Don't be so selfish. Don't be selfish in the terms of thinking that I like it and I don't like it, and that factors into your decision making. So clear and tranquil mind is important, because when we're clouded by our likes and dislikes, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? Think about the food that you're going to be distributed to the people that are suffering earthquake. If you're thinking about the food that you like, then you're going to be preparing and giving out the food that probably more suitable to your liking and your taste, while that might not be the best case for other people, right? So that's when our judgments can be clouded. So clear and tranquil minds. How do you be very objective? And we talk about that in the next session, because all the parts after this, it's exactly telling you how to get there. So I'm making I'm making this answer really long, but that's the long version of it.
Okay, Brother Joe, thanks for the answer. So, may I know anybody else would like to raise any questions? You can always voice out, or you can just put in the chat.
Or you don't have to do any of that, and that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think there isn't any. So maybe we can save the time for our internal offline discussion. I think that would be great as well. So we'd like to share with everyone. So I think thank you, Brother Joe, for your time, and a very interesting. I look forward to the next session next month. So okay, so we pay respect to Buddha and Master. So let's rise and put our palms together. 3 bows to Buddha and Master. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay. Cảm ơn. Okay. Thank you, Brother Joe. Thank you very much.
Great sharing. Yeah, we all hope to be like Joe, huh? Just like be like Mike. We want to be like Joe, like Brother Joe. Okay.
Okay.
Too much to learn from
Thank you.
Okay. And then Brother Joe, good night to you.
Good night. Good night. Have a good weekend.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Okay, so now we will each have our own offline sharing. Okay, so at the respective places, maybe the committee members can help to facilitate this session and encourage everyone to share what they have learned today. And I'm sure everyone has different learning points. So the more you share, the more you remember it, and it retains in your memory. And so we can continue to practice it and get a better clarity. Okay, so let's we can go offline now. So I will also encourage those online, if possible, try to attend. If try to make an effort to attend the physical session on site, so that you can also learn from the other volunteers. And there's so much to learn from each other. So if possible, try to attend. Maybe not every sessions, but if you can, maybe alternate sessions. So that your learning can be more, can be expanded, and you can have a more personal kind of a learning rather than just a one-way listening to Brother Joe alone. Okay, thank you everyone. Good night.
Okay, thank you, Brother Andrew. Thank you, everyone. Good night.